Hello and welcome back. So the 14th July 1789 marked the beginning of the French Revolution. So what happened actually during this time? During this time, because of the bad harvest, the people were facing lots of difficulties. The rise of the prices, the price of the essential commodities were already rising very high. The prices of the essential commodities were very high, and the people were having a very troubled life because of the rise of the prices. So riots started in the city of Paris, and the king called some soldiers in order to establish peace. And meanwhile, a rumor spreaded in the city of Paris that the king has called some soldiers to start firing upon the common people. The common people took up arms, turned into militia, and they demolished this Bastille fort in order to recover some arms and ammunitions. So this Bastille fort symbolized the royal power. After the demolition of the Bastille fort, all the bricks were sold into the market to keep as a memory, and the king was forced to accept the constitution, and constitutional monarchy was established in France. So we are going to discuss this event step by step. So this is the image you can see. This is the image of Louis XVI. When Louis XVI took the royal power, or when Louis XVI became the new king, his treasury was empty. He got an empty treasury. Why? Because France, Louis XIV helped America to get its independence. Now we have to remember here that France and Britain are enemy to each other. So in order to weaken the Britain, French people helped America to get its independence. And America got its independence in 1775. In 1775, America got its independence from Britain. There were 13 colonies in America, and these 13 colonies were under the subjugation and control of Great Britain. Because France was enemy of Britain, France helped America to get its independence. And because in the American War of Independence, France helped financially, its royal treasury became empty. And now Louis XVI began to increase the tax. Louis XVI decided that anyhow I have to increase the tax in order to earn money. And she is the wife of Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette. This is also another cause of the French Revolution. She was extravagant. She was spending higher amount of money in luxurious life, in attending the meetings and the different ceremonies. So Marie Antoinette was extravagant, and she was spending large amount of money in leading her luxurious life. So these were also the causes which led to the outbreak of the French Revolution. Now, if you can remember, in the first video I have discussed about the importance of the French Revolution. Why the French Revolution is important? Because it marked the ideas, the beginning of the ideas of democracy, that is the liberty, equality, fraternity. These are also the objectives of the French Revolution. Now these are different causes. So the causes can be divided into 5 different parts. It is the social cause, economic cause, political cause, growing middle class, and the philosophers. So we are going to discuss each of these causes step by step. So let's discuss about the social cause. Now in your book you can see about the old regime. What is the meaning of the old regime? Old regime means the kings who were ruling over France before 1789. Before the year of 1789, whatever the kings have ruled France, that is called the old regime. So old regime का मतलब हुआ 1789 के पहले जितने भी सारे किंग्स फ्रांस को रूल कर रहे थे, उन्हें कहेंगे ओल्ड regime. Now the French society was discriminatory in nature. The French society was divided into three different estates: the clergy, nobility, and the commoners. So the third estate were called the commoners. COMMONERS, commoners. These commoners comprised of 90% of the people in French society. 90% of the people were called the commoners. So the first state were the clergy. Clergy were the church fathers. The church fathers were called the clergy class. Church fathers, church had the large amount of the property and they were collecting the taxes. They had their own army, although the army was very little. But these church fathers were owning the army also. And the second estate were the nobility class. Nobility class were the landowners. The landowners who were the relative of the king. The relatives of the king, they had large amount of the land and they were treated as the nobility class. So these two estates, these two people were exempted from paying any kind of taxes. They were collecting the tax, but the people will not pay any type of taxes. These two states were not paying any type of tax. All the taxes in the society are paid by the third estate. Now we can compare in our society, in our Indian society, every people pay the tax. There is no discrimination between the people who will pay the tax, who will not pay the tax. In our Indian society, everybody pay the tax. Taxes are paid by everybody. Now income tax, although income tax are not paid by everybody, but the indirect tax, that means if you are buying any commodity, you have to pay the tax. Now the people of France become very upset. Why? Why these first two states, the first estate and the second estate, will not pay the tax. Taxes should be paid by everybody. Now, in the French society, only the third estates were paying the tax. And different type of taxes were there, like the tithe. Tithe were directly collected by these clergy people, these church fathers. Tally, the taxes on essential commodity, taxes on salt, all these were collected by the king and the nobility class. Nobility class were not going to pay any tax. The other taxes were collected by the king. Now look at this third estate. In the third estate, there are big businessmen also. The poor people belong to the third estate, but it does not mean that all the people will be poor. In the third estate, the rich people were also there, poor people were also there. Now, these third estate, the big businessmen, the merchants, now the smallest people were, the people who were very poor, these were the small peasants, the landless labor and the servants. Now another one, the big businessmen, they were owning large amount of the property. So what I mean to say is that in the third estate, there are both rich people and the poor people. But they had a common ground. Everybody in the third estate will have to pay the taxes. When gradually they become conscious about their rights, they start opposing this inequality. That's why somebody will pay the tax and somebody will not pay the tax. So let's go ahead. I hope it is clear. Now, as I have said recently, that tally, it was a direct tax, which was collected by the king. Now another one is the salt or tobacco. The common people had to pay taxes even on the salt and the tobacco. Now there is another tax which is called tithe. It was collected by the church and the common people were paying the tax, third estate. As I have said that the clergy and the nobility were the 10% of the population and they were owning the large amount of the land. Around 60% of the land were owned by the church and the nobility class. The nobility class were, who were the nobility class? The nobility class were the relatives of the king. They were the feudal lords, the jamindars. The nobility class had the large amount of the land. Now the third estate that composed of 90% of the population, and they possessed 20% of the land. Many people, majority of the people in the third estate were poor, illiterate, and they were landless people. So I hope it is clear. Now we can see this image. This third estate people were required to work in the home of their masters. They have to pay the feudal dues, the feudal tax. To the nobility class, the common people had to pay the feudal taxes also. They have to work, the common people have to work in the home, and even the common people have to do the daily work of the feudal lords. Now you can see the image, it is taken from your book. A landowner is sitting like a king, and he is ordering the poor people to surrender everything of whatever he is having. At the top you can see the image of a spider who is trying to eat a fly, a house fly. So this the same situation is explained here, how a spider is going to eat a house fly. And you can see the same type of image which a landowner is seeing over a common people. This common people belong to the third estate. So now we will discuss about the economic cause.